Hi, I'm Dr. Russ, and this is Unit 10, Draft the Body. In Unit 9, you wrote the introduction to your paper. Now you're going to do the big part of the writing as you work on your body. Let's see how that's done. In this video, we'll look at what the body of the paper is, and we're going to talk about an important part of the body, which is an argument. Then we'll talk about writing the body, and we'll look at the assignment. So the goal of this unit is on your own, you will be able to draft the body paragraphs for a paper using an outline. So what is the body? The body is where you make arguments supporting your thesis, you provide evidence, and you develop your ideas. Your purpose is to present, interpret, and analyze the information and sources you found to support your argument. The body is always divided into paragraphs. Okay, we just talked about arguments. What is an argument? An argument is a series of statements that prove or show something. The statements that present facts are called premises, and the final statement is called a conclusion. Let's look at an example. When two people get married, they are called spouses. Dr. Russ is married to Ma Ruth. Therefore, Dr. Russ and Ma Ruth are spouses. That's an example of an argument. The two premises, the things we present as facts, are when two people get married, they are called spouses, and Dr. Ruth is married to Ma Ruth. The conclusion, the thing that we infer from the premises, is therefore, Dr. Russ and Ma Ruth are spouses. So you don't have to remember that these things are called premises and conclusions, but you do need to remember that an argument has a structure to it, a logic to it. You say various things leading up to a conclusion. So this is why we always say, give concrete evidence to support your claims. If we only said the conclusion, the reader would ask, how do you know? Let's go back to the argument above. If all we wrote in our paper is Dr. Russ and Ma Ruth are spouses, how would you know? Maybe they're just friends. Maybe they're brother and sister. Maybe they've never even met and don't even know each other. But when we put them in the form of an argument, which includes the premises and a conclusion, then as the reader, we have no doubt about what the writer is trying to say or where they're going in their thinking. So let's look at writing the body. The paper should follow the outline, and the paragraphs should be in the same order as the outline. But you do not have to write in that order. Choose an order that works best for you. Let's look at an example. Here we have a picture of an outline on the right and a draft on the right. When you look at the draft, the headings are in the same order as the outline. In the outline, the first thing is the introduction, and that's the first section of the draft. The next thing in the outline is plan your day, and plan your day is the next section in the draft. The next section in the outline is follow your schedule, and the next section in the paper is follow your schedule, and so on. Then the last thing in the outline is conclusion, and the last section of the paper is conclusion. However, the writer chose to actually write the text of the paper in a different order. Look at the bright numbers in the draft. Those show the order that the author wrote the paper. In this example, they chose to write the easiest parts first and the most difficult parts last. So they wrote, follow your schedule first because that was the easiest part. Then they wrote, plan your day because that was the next most difficult part. Then handle interruptions because that part was pretty difficult. Then they wrote the conclusion because that can be kind of challenging. And then they went back and wrote the introduction. That was the order that worked for them. You can choose whatever order works for you. Not only do you follow the outline, but remember you wrote an annotated bibliography? That's where you get a lot of the supporting evidence to use in your paper. But what's important is the annotations should give you ideas for how to write your paper. You should not just copy the annotations and paste them into the paper because things have changed a lot between when you took the notes for the annotated bibliography and wrote your paper, and they may not be quite applicable anymore. Plus, remember, you always want to smoothly transition from one idea to another, and that usually requires some kind of rewriting. So do use the annotated bibliography to get ideas for your paper, but make sure you write the ideas down brand new. To make it easier, write one idea at a time using your outline. Each paragraph should focus on only one central idea, giving evidence, explanation, and arguments that relate to that idea. At the start of each paragraph, write a topic sentence that expresses the main point. Then elaborate and expand on the topic sentence in the rest of the paragraph. And then when you said everything you have to say about the idea, move on to a new paragraph. Be sure to keep your arguments flexible. Sometimes writers have trouble getting ideas from the outline form to the paragraph form, or for that matter, to get them from the annotations in the annotated bibliography into the paragraph form. Be prepared to change or abandon sections if you realize they don't make sense. While writing, you may get new ideas that are not in the outline. Note these ideas down and incorporate them into the essay if there's a logical place for them. And if you're stuck on one section, move on to another part of the essay and come back to it later. And here's an important tip. Don't delete content. If you don't like a section of your paper, don't delete it. Save it. Cut it and paste it into another document and save that other document. It may give you a better idea later, and you might want to bring it back in your paper. So let's look at an example. There were two sections on this page of the paper: handle interruptions and review your day. And the author just didn't like the second section in handle interruptions. So what did they do? They took it out, but they saved it. If you look on the right, it's the same paper, only without the second paragraph under handle interruptions. But that second paragraph didn't go away. It's down here in this other document called Save for Later. So if they decide later that with a little work, they could use that paragraph again, maybe even in a different part of the paper, they can just go there and get it. Okay, we've talked about plagiarism before. Whenever you use the ideas of someone else, you need to give them credit for it through citations and references. So every time you use information, be sure to insert a citation into your text and then create a reference list item in your bibliography. Let's look at some examples. The first line in this table shows where we paraphrased something that we found in our annotated bibliography. So we put the author's last name and year in parentheses. And when you look at the reference list on the right, it has that author's name and year along with other information about the source so that the reader can go get that source if they want to. Let's look at the second row. When you quote statistics, you have to use the author and year in the citation, as well as the page number where you found the statistic. And again, the reference on the right has the author and year in it, as well as other information. Similarly, when you take a direct quote out of the text, you need to include it in quotations, as we see in the bottom row, then include the author, year, and page number. And on the right, we see the reference with the author and year. Avoid perfectionism. Get your own ideas down on paper now and perfect them later. Remember, the point of drafting is to just get content into the paper, not to make it perfect. Then when you finish this first draft, you'll know which sections work and which ones might need to be changed. However, when you're writing a first draft, don't get slowed down by small details like spelling or grammar or punctuation. Don't spend time perfecting something that you might later cut out or revise. Okay, let's go over the assignment. You're going to demonstrate that you can draft the body of a paper. So here is a writing toolbox that you can use when you're working on the body. If you don't know how many paragraphs a body should have, check the outline. If you don't know what the topic sentences should be in your paragraphs, look at the thesis statement and the outline. If you don't know what sort of detail should go in a paragraph to support the topic sentence, look at the outline and the annotated bibliography. To write the body, begin by reviewing your thesis statement, your outline, and your annotated bibliography. Then write one paragraph at a time using your outline as a guide. And if you have trouble, see the writing toolbox that we just went over. Also remember that you can write those paragraphs in any order. Make sure that everything you write that is not your own idea has a citation. And there's help for doing that in the APA style citation reference list overview from Unit 4. Finally, submit your assignment to your instructor. Again, we have to remind you not to plagiarize. Plagiarism is when you use another person's words as if they were your own words. Plagiarism is basically stealing. We know that that's not biblical because it's one of the 10 commandments. You shall not steal. It's also against the LICC student handbook. You can see how serious it is because the handbook says example of conduct that may be subject to disciplinary action include stealing. So go back and review pages 13 to 14 of the LICC student handbook because it has important information about plagiarism and stealing. How do you prevent being accused of plagiarizing? Use in-text citations and a bibliography, as we saw. Here's how we'll evaluate the body. Each paragraph supports the overall theme and purpose of the paper. Each paragraph has a topic sentence that states one central point or idea. The sentences of each paragraph relate to the topic sentence. And be on time by submitting the assignment by the due date. If you have any questions, be sure to ask your instructor or lab assistant.